Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, a channel about making computer role-playing games using the free program Twine and the Sugarcube format for Twine. In this video, I'm going to show you the next step in the project that I'm working on, an adaptation of the board game Source of the Nile. The last video was quite long for me. It was about 45 minutes long. This one's going to be much shorter. So here we are at the starting screen, same as before. Let's say that we want to bring a missionary and a journalist, for example. We choose to continue, and we say that we want to travel on foot, for example. And here we have the same screen that we had before, except that we have this new option here. If we're ready, we can set out. We'd be quite unwise to set out because we haven't bought any bearers or guards or anything, but we can set out, and if we choose to set out, it just takes us to a blank page because I've just set the page up to sort of receive that link rather than done anything on it. So let's start again. Again, we'll do a journalist and a missionary, and we choose to go on foot. So let's say we decide to hire some guards. We can see that the muskets are going up as we do that, as I discussed in the previous video. But now let's add some gifts. Now we can see that something's changed. There's a new bit of text here. It says, "You don't have enough bearers to carry your equipment." Of course, we have no bearers, so that's unsurprising. "You don't have enough bearers to carry your equipment. Before you set out, you must hire more bearers or reduce your equipment. Each bearer can carry 10 muskets, gifts or rations, or any combination thereof." Now, I'm not sure how realistic that is. Muskets are quite big, and I think carrying 10 of them through the jungle would be really quite difficult, even if you were a sort of experienced at doing so. But that is the rules. That is the rules of the game as written, and so I'm just going to go with that for now. And also, it's the case that muskets weigh the same as gifts. It seems to me that gifts would tend to be sort of smaller things like mirrors and stuff like that, rather than being the size of a musket, which is a sort of a huge club. And presumably the weight of a musket also includes some, powder and ammunition and stuff. But again, that's the rules as written. I may change it later. Rations, it's a bit different because, of course, it depends on how much. It doesn't mean that every ration is a day's ration. We haven't sort of specified the time as yet, so it might be quite a lot of food. One ration might be quite a lot of food. But anyway, the point is that we have a system of encumbrance. We have a way of keeping track of the spare muskets, if any, and the gifts and the rations, and that we have to have enough bearers to carry that load. So we might increase our bearers, and then we find that at 4 bearers, there's enough to carry what we've got. And that makes sense because we've got 3 Europeans and 5 guards and 8 muskets, so there are no spare muskets, and we've got 20 gifts and 20 rations. Well, if each bearer can carry 10 gifts or rations, then of course that requires 4. So it's working as it says that it's working. It also means if we say we have a couple of spare muskets, well, now we're over, we're overweight. We can't set out. We have to hire another bearer, and so on. And we'd probably hire a lot more than that because we're only spending £430 out of 800, and money is no use once you start on the expedition. You can you'll be able to trade with people that you meet if you're lucky, but they don't want money. They don't accept money. It's only trading, goods. So let's leave that for now and have a look at the code that allows that to happen. So the extra code, there is a new page, but the new page has got no got nothing on it. I just put it in there so that we didn't get an error trying to go to that page. Other than that, the change in the code is in this outfit expedition page. So let's zoom in and have a look at the relevant bit of code. This is all what we talked about in the last video. Okay, so here we go. We have the little note that says check ratios of gear to bearers, canoes, etc. Well, we haven't done canoes yet, but and then it's different depending on which type of expedition, because if you're it will work quite differently. If you're having an expedition on the river, the bearers aren't really carrying anything. The bearers are paddling the canoes, and then the canoes are carrying stuff. So we have to sort of, it works quite differently to see what we can do. So we have if E equals 1, then we have this code, and then we have else if E equals 2 and E equals 3, remembering that E is the number that tells us what sort of expedition we're setting up, and I've just made a note that I haven't done those two yet. So let's look at the code that I have done, which is all of this bit. So there's a note that bearers can carry up to 10 items. The first thing we need to do is find the number of spare muskets, if any. So we set Z equal to math.max, capital M-A-T-H .max. The way math.max works is it's the maximum of 2 or more values. So for example, math.max 2, 3, Z would always be 3 or Z, whichever was the highest. And the numbers that you can put in here can be variables. They can be straight numbers. There's probably not much point in putting 2 and 3, of course, because the maximum of 2 and 3 is always going to be 3. So you might as well just put 3, but you can do it. It doesn't break the code. Or you can have sort of formulas. So you could have, y times x or something like that. In this case, we've only got two different numbers. One is 0, and one is this formula here: ex4 minus p0 minus ex2 minus 1. So what that means is ex is the array that has the number of different non-player characters or resources. It is the number of muskets is ex4 minus $p0. That is the number of special characters that you're bringing, the doctor and the journalist and the anthropologist and so on. Then we minus $ex2, which is the number of guards, and then we minus 1. Now the reason that we minus these things from the number of muskets is that the special characters all carry their own musket. And yes, this includes the doctor and the missionary. We minus ex2 because all of the guards carry their own musket. And then we minus 1 because you, the player character, carries their own musket as well. So we have that the number of muskets minus people carrying the musket, or 0. Now, this is a bit of sort of overcoding because this number should never be negative. There shouldn't ever be a situation where, at the start of the game anyway, there shouldn't be a situation where you don't have enough muskets, because I've made it impossible to get rid of muskets if it gets down to the point where only you and the guards and the special characters have a musket. I've made it that you can't reduce the number of muskets. But this formula might be useful later in the game because there are various disasters. You can lose bearers and therefore lose resources. So we might lose muskets, and we might find that we don't have enough muskets. The other thing that can happen is that we end up hiring new guards and we might not have muskets for them. So I've just used this formula for now, even though really this bit is the only bit that is actually relevant. You often have math.max 0 and something because in a lot of cases when you're writing a game, you'll be finding are we over capacity? You want to penalise in one direction but not another. Like if we have spare muskets, then we want to. That makes things harder for the bearers. But not having enough muskets doesn't make things easier for the bearers. If we have 2 muskets and no one to carry them, that's 2 muskets the bearers have to carry. But if we have too few muskets, that negative weight of those muskets doesn't lighten the load of the bearers. So in real world situations, often you'll have this formula where you have the maximum, which is math.max, of some formula or 0 or some complicated formula, and this is an example of that. So we find the number of spare muskets. It's either 0 or there is some number of spare muskets, and then we have this bit of code. This is the deciding factor on whether you get the message that says you can set out or the message that says no, you can't set out yet because you don't have enough bearers. So it's if EX3 times 10 is less than EX5 plus EX6 plus Z. So what does that all mean? EX3 is the number of bearers. We then multiply that by 10 because each bearer can carry 10 items. And we compare that to EX5 plus EX... Oh, sorry, I accidentally... EX5 plus EX6, which is the number of gifts and rations, plus Z, which is the number of spare muskets, if any, the thing we worked out in the previous line. So if there aren't enough bearers to carry the load, then we get this this message which says you don't have enough bearers to carry your equipment. Before you set out, you must hire more bearers or reduce your equipment. Each bearer can carry 10 muskets, gifts or rations or any combination thereof. And if that's not the case, if we have enough bearers or more than enough bearers, then we get this: if you're ready, you may set out, and the text is set out, and it goes to a page called set out, which is the blank page I showed you before, and it's a button, as we've discussed before. And then in future videos, I'll be doing separate coding for working out the mounted expeditions or canoe expeditions. So that is a quite simple and, as I say, perhaps not realistic and perhaps going to be changed. Perhaps I'll make muskets, way more. But for now, that's the rules as written. That is a fairly simple system for making sure that you have enough people to carry the load that you have, which might be relevant for your own games if you're making a game where there's a sort of party and you have bearers and they're carrying equipment, treasure, and so on. So I hope that was useful or interesting to at least some of you, and I hope you will tune in next time.